back to another Simpleton Review. This is Simpleton Review Podcast. I am your Simpleton number 1, Nate Wade.
And I am Simpleton number 2, Charlie Gibson.
I'm Simpleton number 3, Lemuel Edwards.
And the reason why Lemuel is Simpleton number 3 is not because he's last, but because he's young. And that's it. Okay? He has to learn from his elders. And Charlie and I are most definitely his elders, right?
Talk about my age, I'll beat you with my cane.
Right. Hey, I'm 46 years old. I believe Charlie is, what are you, 47?
I'm 46 and turning 47 in a couple months.
October, right?
Correct.
Yes, right on. So, yeah, so we're old farts, okay? We are now closer to 50 than we are to 40. And not only that, we have lived probably more than half of our lives.
Yep.
That's depressing, isn't it? All right. Well, on this episode of Simpleton Review, we're going to talk about a brand new album by one of my favorite bands, a tiny little band from Seattle called Pearl Jam. Yes, that's right. Pearl Jam finally came out with a brand new album, and they called it Gigaton. It's the 11th studio album by Pearl Jam. It was released back in March, so it's been around for a couple of months, and you know we've had some discussion on what albums to review since then, and Pearl Jam has lost out. So now it's my turn, and we're going to talk about Pearl Jam. Heck yeah! So let's just say Pearl Jam. Hopefully most of you guys know who Pearl Jam is, but they were probably well, at one point, they were up there in the upper echelons of rock music. Probably, you could say they were one of the top 5 rock bands of all time, at least in the early 90s, at least probably between like 1990 to maybe 1994, 95. They were up there big time. Huge, huge rock band with millions and millions of followers. They were an interesting band. They were part of what they called the Seattle sound. So they were grunge, but Pearl Jam wasn't as grungy as Nirvana or Alice in Chains or some of those other bands. They were a lot more kind of in-your-face rock and roll. Really done by Stone Gossard's excellent, excellent guitar work. I just totally groove his guitar. I mean, you could really say that they were, you could put Pearl Jam in maybe the 70s or 80s and you would have they could have still been successful because they had that sound. Maybe a little bit grunge, but they bordered on metal, which I guess that's why I liked Pearl Jam so much. Plus they were kind of depressing on occasion, so that was good too.
Well, that's the thing. They still held on to the guitar solo. I mean, everybody else nixed it. Yeah. I mean, there were great guitar solos in this album.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So what did you guys think? What was your impressions of Pearl Jam's Gigaton?
I'm looking at Lemuel's face.
Charlie?
Yeah, we'll go Charlie first.
Yeah.
I actually thought it was pretty good. I liked the first probably 2/3 of the album. Mm-hmm. The last bit is kind of like as soon as they got to Buckle Up, it kind of trailed off. Mm-hmm. But the start was really strong. That totally had the first 2 tracks probably had the Versus vibe, mm-hmm. and Versus is like their album where they didn't have any sort of promotion. Yeah, and still like sold millions.
Oh yeah, sure. I mean,
it was fantastic.
Huge, right? They absolutely
great album
to do any music videos off of that album. Right? That was when they had their beef with MTV, and they said we're not doing any more music videos, and it was still huge. Right?
Yeah, it was fantastic. Yeah. And this one started off the same way. It had definitely the Pearl Jam sound, mm-hmm. but I love the Dance of the Clairvoyance because it kind of had that Talking Heads vibe. I mean, definitely like an 80s.
That's exactly the words I said. I said, this sounds like the Talking Heads. I said that to Kimberly when I was like, so yeah, totally. Go ahead.
Oh, stop.
What's going on over there, Lem?
He's trying to hear the song like, know what we're talking about. Who are the Talking Heads? What the heck?
Wait, what are you playing?
That's a good question. Am I going to be kicked off of YouTube because of you?
Yeah. It says Spotify's playing, but there's nothing on Spotify playing. What are you doing?
Oh, that's a good question. So, tell me a little bit about Dance of Clairvoyance. What did you think of that song? I mean, first of all, it was crazy that, wait, is this keyboards in a Pearl Jam?
I know, right?
So, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I really dug the sound. They did a lot of different mix than they usually do.
Yeah.
Step forward. I mean, and all their albums. And you can tell ones where they really step away from their sound because it makes a lot of people mad. Mm-hmm. This one made all the classic people happy. It's like, but at the same time, and it was an early release. That was their first release off the album, mm-hmm. and it totally blew people out of the water, thinking, "Whoa, they're going somewhere different with this album. And then all of a sudden when the album released, it's
Right.
like, oh, they have their same sound. Okay, it's not going to be something way stepped off and awful or anything like that.
Right.
So
Right. Yeah, that's true. You know, and I totally agree with you as far as what you said about you know, the first half of the album being pretty rocking. But you know, I really didn't feel like they had a really good Pearl Jam guitar solo until later on in the album, and I cannot remember for the life of me now which song that was. I think it might been, it might be Buckle Up.
I want to say it was All Right.
Yeah,
no, it was All Right.
Yeah, and it was just like, okay, now there is a Stone Gossard guitar solo.
Yeah.
A lot of you know, just strumming and guitar notes. There was, and it was just, I don't know. I liked it a lot. Of course, I mean, it's Pearl Jam, and there really can't go wrong in my book a lot of times. I guess I'm predisposed to that, but it was different. I felt there was a couple of things like I kind of felt like, okay, you can tell that Eddie Vedder is getting a little older. I mean, they've got to all be in their 50s by now, right? Probably early to mid 50s, right? So, and when we get older, our voice starts to go a little bit. And I just felt like the range that Eddie Vedder has had in the past did not exist on this album. Did you get that?
Well, it's not that the range is gone. It's just that the difference is that when you get older, it's like you don't get the range and the power.
Yeah.
So it's like you can't force it out. I mean, you got to be like heavily mic'd to be able to hit those high notes.
Yeah.
And he's probably not going to do it because if you're going to try and do this live, not going to happen.
No, that's not true. Lemuel, why don't you sneak on in there and talk a little bit about what you thought of this album, coming from a 22-year-old perspective who missed the 90s grunge scene completely.
Missed the 90s grunge scene.
But had a dad into it, so you kind of know what I'm talking about.
That's true. Objectively, I think it was really good. The mixing, you could tell, was pretty primo, and they were doing some pretty, I guess, complicated musical stuff that you wouldn't hear like a band who's only been around for a little while do as much, I'd say.
Yeah.
But I want to say subjectively, I wasn't vibing with it all that much, to be honest.
And why's that?
I don't know. I don't know if it was the fact that I listened to it like at 6 o'clock in the morning while I was at work or what, but for the most part, I was like, this is all right.
Really? Now, do you like Pearl Jam to begin with in other context?
The only exposure I have to Pearl Jam is an album that was on my iPod Shuffle in like 7th grade.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, and you were like, maybe you should not listen to that for a year or two. And I was like, okay, so I don't even remember.
It was probably Jeremy. That's probably the song that was on there.
Oh, yeah. That's what it was. Yeah, you told me.
Jeremy's probably their most famous song that they ever did, and definitely the most famous music video they ever did, and probably one of the most famous music videos ever made. I mean, it's a pretty impressive song. So, I mean, it did chart well. I'm looking at the charts right now. It landed at number 5 on the Billboard charts, which is pretty impressive. It was the top alternative album. It was the top hard rock album. It was the top rock album. I mean, that's where the peak position was number 1 on all of those, number 5 on the Billboard. It was number 34 on the French albums. Who gives a right?
Their accent's not right on for the French. I mean, they got to have a pure accent.
It was number 30 on the Japanese albums charts, and it was number 12 on the Czech albums charts. But who really cares? Austria, they like Pearl Jam, landed at number 1 there. Okay, Greece, yep, same thing. Italian, Italy. Portuguese. Portugal likes Pearl Jam too, obviously, because it all landed at number 1 in all those charts. So I would say that even though they are a bunch of slightly above middle-aged rockers, they obviously still have a following out there. What do you guys think?
I think they do have a following. I was listening to it at work, and I was driving to this place we get all our materials, and the guy comes out to hand me the materials, and he goes, "Oh, who's this? They sound really good." And I was like, "Oh, it's Pearl Jam." And he goes, "Really? They just what?" And I was like, "Yeah, they just released a new album." He's like, "I'm gonna have to go check it out."
Yeah, well, there
all right.
Well, and Charlie and I, we were able to go to the Pearl Jam concert when they were there in Boise back in what was it? 2000, right? Because they were
because they released the Boise live show from that.
Right, and they
It
were
was when they did the whole series of the live shows.
Yes, exactly, and they were promoting Ralph Nader for president. I remember that.
Yes,
remember that? Yeah, so they were pushing the Green Party up there and with Pearl Jam, and it was terrible. The concert was terrible. And
rocking the free world.
It was, and I don't know if it was because of where we were sitting, because we were kind of sitting on the side, so we weren't straight on from the stage. But the sound was, and probably because it was the Ford Center as well. I mean, it was just awful. The band themselves were phenomenal. Stone Gossard can play that guitar in person like you hear it on the studio albums. It's no different. The guy is an amazing guitarist. But the sound, I wanted to shoot that sound, man. I did. It was awful. But that was
they kept pushing it too loud. It was just, I mean, because I went to Tom Petty, like.
Oh yeah, well, you and I were both there at Tom Petty. Yeah,
and it sounded perfect.
Oh, it was amazing. Yeah.
The thing was that they totally like blew out the sound and it distorted everything, and I think it was awful for the place.
That's right. Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah. And they had, it doesn't sound that bad on the recording. So maybe it was a lot better than we thought it was because of where we were sitting in the arena. But that was the first time they'd ever played. I mean, I guess they had tried to play over the years, but something always happened and they weren't able to play. So finally they were able to play 10 years after 10 comes out, It was like, so everybody was totally excited and stoked. And that place was freaking packed with people.
It was good.
Sold out. It was a good concert. I mean, regardless of the sound quality, it was still a good concert. And I was, as Charlie could probably, tell everybody, I was like a little kid in a candy store. Okay. Anyway, so yeah, that was Pearl Jam. So I'm going to give my rating on this Pearl Jam album. First of all, by the way, I just want to say that most of the critics that matter, unlike us, liked the album. It sounds like they were getting 4 to 5 stars for the most part over, whether it be Rolling Stones or Spin Magazine or any of these other rock magazines. So it's been received pretty well for the most part. And for Nate, Simpleton number 1, I am going to give it a 3.5 stars altogether for that. And the reason why is because there was just, and I liked it. I liked it a lot, but for some reason, there really wasn't something that just like, wow, this is amazing, and I got to crank it up. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm gonna echo yours and give it a 3.5 as well.
Yeah.
And the same thing. There was it had all the vibe and had some of the new stuff.
Yeah,
but it just didn't have the same hook in it that all their albums do that really draw you in and suck you in for the whole thing.
I just didn't feel like there was that like that's Pearl Jam. Like most of the songs were good, but I couldn't point to a song and say, and if I didn't know Eddie Vedder's voice, I wouldn't be able to tell it was a Pearl Jam song.
I think the first track was the only one that I was like, oh, now this is like.
Yep.
This is totally backtracked and like you could tell that this was like their feel from the past.
Yeah, that's true. Well, Mr. 3, what do you think?
I think I'm just going to also give it a 3.5. Like I said, objectively, I could tell it was a really well done album. It's just, Yeah.
And okay, and I'm giving them a 3.5 based on their past work. Not based on somebody else, because if I was like saying, okay, I'm going to take this rock band and then I'm going to compare it to Pearl Jam. I mean, Pearl Jam is upper echelon stuff here we're talking, but compared to their earlier work and even more their more recent work, I'm just like, it was okay. It was okay. How does that sound? Wasn't terrible.
Yeah, that sounds right.
All right, so 3.5 stars on the Simpleton review for Pearl Jam's new album, Gigaton. Check it out. You can find it on every streaming service possible. They aren't afraid to release it on there. So if you like Spotify, go to Spotify, Amazon, wherever. If you want to actually buy the album, you can do that too. So, go do that kind of stuff.
Buy albums?
What? I know, it's weird.
Oh, yeah. Who
does that kind
I
of
still buy CDs, the little silver
CD?
disc.
Who does that kind of thing these days?
Never seen those before.
But you know what? If you stream it, that's cool too. Just know that if you stream it, every time you stream it, they are getting paid. So that's a good thing. They don't get paid a lot. It's like a fraction of a penny every time a song is played, but that adds up over time. So stream it, promote it. If you guys like it, make sure that people know that Pearl Jam is out there with a brand new album. We're going to head into a new segment here at Simpleton Review. It is Pop Culture Happiness. We want to know, we're going to tell you guys something that we are totally looking forward to in the next month or so, and I am going to let Mr. Number 2 go first. So what do you got for us, Chuckles?
Well, actually, I know we're supposed to do in a month out, but I went too because my birthday's in October.
Oh, good.
And 2 days before my birthday, they were releasing The French Dispatch in theaters.
The French Dispatch. I don't know
French
what that
Dispatch.
is.
This is Wes Anderson's new film.
Oh.
So if you like all those pastel colors in the backgrounds and like really quirky dialogue.
Yes, I've seen the preview of that movie. Now I remember.
It looks amazing. It looks amazing.
Yeah.
So watch a preview. Check it out. This is going to be a fun flick. It looks like it's going to be a couple of few stories kind of like meshed together.
Yeah.
Kind of like what is it? Paris Jetem. It was a bunch of short stories that were French stories that were done. A lot of different directors. This one's all one director, but it's like it sounds like it's several stories put together to kind of put this conglomerate together. So it's going to be fun.
Now it takes place during World War II, doesn't it? If I recall correctly, or somewhere.
I believe so. If not, it's like pre that because it's about I think it's during one of the civil wars, like one of the short civil wars.
Okay, gotcha.
Or like revolts during that. So.
Well, that's a good one. I am excited for Wes Anderson. If anybody ever says Wes Anderson, I'm just excited because he's so good. All right, Mr. Number 2, what do you got for us?
I just told you.
Yeah, he just told us.
Yeah. 1, 2, 3. Mr. Number 3, what do you got for us?
So my little bit for this segment is Flight Simulator should be coming out sometime this month.
Okay, I just want to stop you right there, and I want to let you know that flight simulators have been around for decades.
Okay, but this one. So here's the thing about this one that has everyone who's like kind of heard about it somewhat excited is that they plan on using Bing Maps to recreate like the whole Earth.
Did you say Bing, like MSN Bing?
Well, yeah, that's because it's owned by Microsoft, so obviously they're not going to use Google. All right. But still, it's really like a neat concept that they're going to try to recreate the entire Earth in one game. That's not really been done as much.
Okay, and so what kind of platforms are you going to be able to find this on?
You'll be able to find it on Xbox and Microsoft Windows. So if you have a PC or Xbox One or whatever the next one is, you'll be able to play it.
Right on. And when does that game release? Do you know?
August 18th. So
August 18th.
Ooh, right around the corner.
Yeah.
Sweet. Right on. Are you going to get it?
Not right away, probably. I need to make sure my finances are fixed first.
Ah, yes. and
it's all about the money.
Having to pay for your own stuff. It's always fun, let me tell you. Well, my excitement is I cannot wait for a certain movie coming out called Bill and Ted 3, otherwise known as Bill and Ted Music. Whoa. Right on. I am so excited. I cannot wait. It's been almost 20 years since the last Bill and Ted's movie came out, and now we have the original actors. We've got Keanu Reeves and what's his name? Alex Winter reprising their roles as Bill and Ted, and the only person that's going to be missing, of course, is George Carlin, who's passed away. May he rest in peace. But it's going to be a fantastic show, and it was going to come out later on in the year, but now they've pushed it to August 28th because they want to make sure that they are able to capture the audience that Mulan would normally take from, because Mulan is releasing at a certain point, and so they're gonna release just a little bit before that. So, but the cool thing about this one is that they are actually releasing it in the movie theaters and on video on demand. And I'm not sure what the cost is for the video on demand rental if you want to do it. It's probably like $19.99 because that's been what the kind of the generic price has been for these new movies releasing straight to home video, if you will. So that's really cool. I actually kind of like the idea that they're still going to release in theaters, even if there's not a big crowd going to the theaters, because let's face it, the theater industry has been in dire straits for a long time. And this pandemic that we're going through right now might be the nail in the coffin for theaters. If they can't figure out a way to compete, and there's been some things that they've done to change things and try to get people to come and experience the joy of going to a movie again. But if movie companies don't support the theaters, there ain't going to be any more. They're just going to close down. So it's cool that they're at least going to release it regardless of how much money they get at the theater, and they're also going to release it for a home audience as well. So I'm totally looking forward to it. I mean, they've got the phone booth and the whole bit in it. It's going to be amazing.
Nice.
That's what That's my excitement right there. I mean, I'm looking at this picture right here of Keanu Reeves and Alex Winter in the phone book. I mean, yes, they're old. Yes, their cheeks are sagging, but it's
bodacious, dude.
dead, man. Really dead. I just can't. I'm so excited. I really am. I saw both of those movies at the theater with some buddies of mine, and I'm just memories. Okay, so that's our new segment here at the Simpleton Review. The excitement, the pop culture happiness. That's what we're calling it. Pop culture happiness. The things that we are looking forward to in the next month or two, depending on how far out you go. So we have Bill and Ted's Face the Music. Lemmy, what was yours?
Flight Simulator.
And Charlie.
And the French Dispatch.
French Dispatch by Wes Anderson. Hey, this has been Nate Wade. I am Simpleton number 1.
And I'm Charlie Gibson, Simpleton number 2.
I'm Lemuel Edwards, Simpleton number 3.
I want to thank you all for joining us here at the Simpleton Review. We look forward to seeing you next month as we review a new music and a new movie just for you, the Simple Guys and girls. All right, you guys have a great day. Bye-bye.